Oh boy. Last night, the Nashville Fair Board met for their monthly meeting, and this time, the floor was open for the community members and others to give their thoughts on a proposal for NASCAR possibly to be brought back to the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. All sides had some good points and some bad points. So today, we need to overlook what we have. I want to say before we get into this, though, that just because someone might say something really stupid here doesn't mean that they should be harassed or messed with. Joke about them? Sure, that's fine, but don't mess with them. We need to argue our points off of mostly merit and maybe, like I said, have a little fun with it, because ultimately, people doing that is how we're going to get NASCAR racing back to the fairgrounds. So let's get into it. First off, I want to give members of Bristol and SMI credit for their tolerance of the bombardment they got last night from a lot of people. It speaks volumes as to how much they're willing to do to get this done. And as Matt Weaver did say, shows the reverence that they have for the legacy and history of the Speedway. So the SMI side needs to be appreciated for what they're doing here, no matter the outcome. Now, with the opposition to the Speedway, there are some legitimate concerns that people in the community have. Parking accommodations are a big one. The plan seems right now for the fairgrounds capacity to top out at around 30,000 spectators, which is reasonable. Even though it's small for NASCAR standards, you gotta remember that that's still a lot of people. So the question is, where do they go? You can build more parking, but that might not accommodate everybody. You could share with the MLS stadium. Or another option could be a tram system from Nissan Stadium where the Tennessee Titans play. It's only 10 minutes from the fairgrounds and can be used as a way to help supplement parking if NASCAR, the city, or anyone else agrees to it. So there's options here. Another part of the opposition is the noise. Trust me, we'll cover some of this in a little bit, but there's more here that we can go over. But being that this is a racetrack built in a neighborhood, you have to have consideration for the locals. Yes, they moved into a neighborhood with a racetrack that's been there for 117 years. But they are people who deserve to at least be heard out, even if their points are bad. Trust me, as a pro racing guy, it's loud near a racetrack. I live near one, so I can tell you that from experience. But I also understand that the track has been there long before I was born. But it doesn't hurt to try to mitigate the sound a bit. And it sounds like that's what's going to be done at the track. But what locals need to understand is that it ain't going to be as quiet as a wake. And then the last big overall point that there is more communication needs to be had between the parties and the community deciding this. If for anything else, but to clear up the bad misinformation. For instance, there was a woman who deadass said that there were 5 Formula One tracks in the area. Seriously, listen to it here.
I'm already experiencing the nightmare that is about to unfold as a result of the noise that the racetrack produces. I have tried turning my television up to volume 10 and my sound system at the same time. When NASCAR runs, my windows vibrate, it scares my dog, and I simply cannot have an evening to myself in my apartment. There are 5 perfectly operating Formula One and NASCAR tracks that are fully operational, that are available 20 to 30 minutes outside Nashville. There is no other city in the United States that has a NASCAR track or a Formula One track in a residential neighborhood. There is a lot of talk about neglect of the stadium. There is no talk of neglect of the neighborhood that they are about to destroy. This is offensive. This is a neighborhood that we were able to buy into quite easily that is now raising in prices. We are enjoying the property gains, which we do not want to lose. This is a terrible, terrible decision, and none of it should be allowed to be processed and to go through. I'm appalled that this should even be a discussion and that any of this should be even contemplated within the residential neighborhood that we live.
Crikey, she thought she was really making a point. So there's really only been 5 Formula One races in the United States since 2015. With the addition of the Nashville Superspeedway, there now are currently 2 NASCAR tracks in Tennessee. Not the city of Nashville, I'm talking about the entire state of Tennessee. That's basic info that you could have got with a Google search. Now, to allow what she says and what the reaction is, 1, your dog will be okay. Make sure they stay inside and you're good to go. 2, the clapping in there, that just makes it look even worse because you're clapping at clearly wrong info. And 3, it looks like she went to the school of the louder I am, the more people will agree with me. Trust me, doesn't work.
I think from everyone that I've talked to about it who is opposed to this, we knew that we were living in the neighborhood where the Speedway was, but there's a difference between the Speedway and NASCAR. Right now we're talking almost, even with the sound wall, almost doubling the noise. And everyone who was up here who spoke against it lives in Franklin, Brittwood, Antioch, Columbia, Old Hickory, Creve Hall, Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Madison, Antioch, Franklin, East Nashville, and East Nashville. Do any of you on the board or the mayor live in our neighborhood? And you think this is a good thing? No? If this wanted to move to your neighborhood with NASCAR, not Speedway, but with NASCAR, would you guys be like, come on, yeah? That's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, lady, don't go into acting because your theatrics really don't convince anyone. Most of the people in favor of this would be just fine with a NASCAR track in their neighborhood. So ultimately, you prove nothing.
This affects our lives. This affects our daily lives. Where are people going to park? Even if you bring shuttles in, there are shuttles idling, creating air pollution. Air pollution is a big concern of mine. My mother suffers from many respiratory conditions. I certainly wouldn't want that for the school that's 900 feet away from the track.
If you really worried about air pollution that much, you wouldn't live in a densely populated city. And by the way, this is coming from an asthmatic. Also, based on most proposals, the track would operate on the weekends when kids aren't in school. So another irrelevant point from another hypocritical commenter.
Say roughly 50 million. It's probably going to be more than that, but let's say roughly 50 million. And then we have this 10-year lease where Bristol Motor Speedway is paying $1 million per year to the government. And then if you look at NASCAR's ratings, they're going way down. 5 years, they've cut in half. We've gone from 40 million viewers to 20 million viewers. Another 10 years, we're going to be down to so little. So what you have then is $40 million now left, right? Because we have $50 million we invested. We got back $10 million. Then we still have this $40 million hole that we're going to leave in our budget and this huge monstrosity of a thing that nobody's going to care that much about anymore. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
While initially true on the ratings front, the ratings have stabilized in the past 4 years. Also, he picked a bad day to talk about ratings, seeing how the past 3 races have significantly increased to levels that he was actually talking about NASCAR from before decreasing. These are only a few of the dissenting commenters. Obviously, there were more, but they kind of treaded over the same ground over and over again. Most of the ones who were not sensible or reasonable were strictly just going off of emotion. That's what the majority of the pushback is against the Speedway. Almost all emotion. And it isn't just the people commenting either, but also one of the councilmen, Jason Bergeron. He so far has had most of his questions answered, he just doesn't like the answers. So he continues to rage on due to just basically being, in his words, uncomfortable. Luckily, it seems like he's outnumbered right now, as the general consensus at the moment on the fair board seems to be a 3-1 majority for SMI to acquire the Speedway lease. If it holds, then there will be a deal made. Just gotta hope that it stays with that 3-1 lead and that it holds. But so far, so good right now. Now, with that being said, I want to close this out by showing you some of those in favor. So after that, just let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to my channel for more great NASCAR content. And until next time, have a good one.
I certainly have a vested interest in the Nashville Fairgrounds. I ran my first race there in 1968, and so I live in Franklin, Tennessee, 37069. Anyway, I've been coming down here a long time, and there's a couple of things that kind of stick out. First of all, Jerry Caldwell, Bruton Smith, Marcus, the SMI group, they don't come any better than that. If they tell you they're going to do something, you can take it to the bank. Bruton Smith has been in this sport longer than I have, and he loves this sport, and he's a promoter of the fans. He loves to do things that the fans like. If you look at, they said you couldn't light a super speedway, and they were the first ones to light Charlotte Motor Speedway. They said no condos at a racetrack. They were the first ones to build condos at the racetrack. So these people they're visionaries. They do things to the speedways, they do things to the facilities, they do things in the community. Speedway Children's Charity is a great example of their involvement in the community. So when Jerry sits up here, and I am impressed with the amount of work they have done over the last couple of years, putting together the research, the programs, all the things that they've presented here tonight. Very impressive to see what they've done in a very short period of time. So, look, this is a golden
One thing, the racetrack was there before everything was built. They built everything around the racetrack. Then they wanted to start hollering about it. Now, I go to the races. Yes, I'm an avid race fan. People work every week to go to baseball, football. I work to go to the races. I love racing. I love everything at the fairgrounds. So SMI and Nashville, the city of Nashville, needs to keep the racetrack and everything else there. Thank you.
The racetrack's been there for a long time. The soccer's coming. It's got 30 dates plus. Why don't our racetrack have 30 dates plus? I mean, why? We have had it. We have been there. Give us our dates. I like Bristol. I hope they come because I think it's the only savior for the racetrack with the fair board members and the city the way they are right now. I think it's the only savior for it. I don't like the restrictions of 10 races, no concerts. Hey, we used to have the country music, fanfare out there. How many concerts do we have then? What's wrong with y'all guys? Do y'all want to kill this racetrack? Is that what you're wanting to do? I'm just asking a question because that's what way you're operating right now and the decisions you're making, you're killing this place. And you know it. Is it your agenda? I mean, if it ain't, then approve the deal. Let the people have some dates, let them make some money, and let the city make some money. But instead, we're going to sit here and talk about other things. Let's talk about the racetrack, what we're here tonight to talk about. Let Bristol have the deal. Let them do it. Let the city make money. Give them more dates. Give them more concert dates. Why are you handicapped? Soccer stadium is going to be real noisy for 30 plus dates. And y'all hadn't even addressed putting a sound wall around them. So please, I'm asking you to do the deal. Thank you.